and welcome to another episode of FooBar. Today we are going to get started with AWS SAM. So AWS SAM stands for Serverless Application Model, and it's an open source framework for building serverless applications. It's kind of built on top of CloudFormation, and it comes with a lot of shorthand syntax, ways of defining things that we do a lot in serverless applications, like functions, event source mappings, APIs, databases, step functions, and so on and so forth. So whenever we are building serverless applications, we are writing in this SAM kind of language, and we don't need to write all these million resources that CloudFormation require us to build. However, one of my favorite things from SAM is the capability to use CloudFormation resources to extend the SAM template, so you can always, if that resource is not available in the SAM syntax, you can always use CloudFormation notation to make your own resources and bring all the power of CloudFormation into SAM. Also, SAM allows you to do local testing, run your Lambda functions locally and with some kind of API gateway. You can do some debugging. I usually don't like to do that much because I think testing should be done in the cloud because the environments are so different. But if that's something that you're interested, you can go and check it out. Why this SAM is important for you? Well, I show you in the video on Lambda functions on how to create those Lambda functions manually. That's possible, but if you need to create a lot of Lambda functions and maybe not that many, but you want to replicate them in multiple accounts and multiple environments, you need to go through the console. That's manual, that's a lot of work. It takes you forever even to build a hello world. So having infrastructure as code is super important when building any kind of applications, and more when you're building serverless applications. The amount of resources that you will have in your infrastructure is massive, and SAM will help you to build this infrastructure and have it under control. You can decide how you want to organize your serverless projects. You can have one big SAM template and have all your resources together, or as I like to do it, to build it in multiple repositories organized in this kind of microservice idea, where I put small set of resources into one SAM template, I put all the code, I put it in one GitHub repo, and then in my mind it kind of feels more natural to think about this concept of microservice. But having the infrastructure as code is fundamental. Then you can deploy this into your production, your development, your staging. Tomorrow you create a new stage, you can do it. Tomorrow you can copy paste this and create a new function with the same infrastructure, just change the code. The possibilities are endless. So please, if you're building serverless applications, use infrastructure as code. There are many options. There are options internal to AWS like SAM, CDK, I talk a lot about it, CloudFormation. You can do as well Amplify, or then you can use some third-party tools like Serverless Framework. It doesn't matter which one you pick, but just pick one. If you pick SAM, SAM is perfect for serverless applications when you have a lot of functions and a lot of API gateways, and then I like it a lot for that kind of use cases when things are getting more heavy on the AWS resources and I need other kind of resources. If I need a VPC, I will definitely go with CDK. But when things get a little bit more complex, I've been enjoying a lot CDK lately. But SAM is my default go-to when I want to build basic microservices for serverless applications. It's so easy, it's so clean. I love it. So to get started with SAM, you need to install in your computer the SAM CLI. And the SAM CLI provides a way to build, package, and deploy your functions. You can also do testing and other kind of things. And then you can do it from your computer as well from your CI/CD pipeline. So if you were using code build, for example, you need to make sure that the SAM CLI is installed to use the SAM functionality. Then you can get started with your SAM project using the SAM CLI by running SAM init. We will see it in the demo in a second. You can define all your infrastructure in your SAM template, and then you can build that and deploy it to the cloud. SAM will make sure that the transformation happens between your SAM syntax and CloudFormation, and then it will use CloudFormation to deploy all this stack of resources defined in the infrastructure. So whenever you're using SAM, you will see a CloudFormation stack appearing in your AWS account. So let's go to my screen and see how we can get started with SAM. So if you don't have it installed, you can follow the instructions that are in the AWS Serverless Application Model website. I will leave the link in the description box. You can go and check it. There you can see a lot of information about SAM and links to the documentation as well. And also the instructions to install SAM CLI. If you have a Mac, Windows, or Linux, the instructions are there. I have a Mac, so we will be looking at those installation instructions. And here in the instructions, it tells you the first step, you need an AWS account. I will not show you how to do that. I have a video for that. The link is in the description box. Then you need to configure your IAM permissions and AWS credentials in your computer. Follow the steps. Install Docker. Then, if you're using Mac, I will use Homebrew to install it. Well, I have it installed already. Linux and Windows have different instructions. So after you follow those instructions, you're ready to go, and you can do SAM -- version to make sure you have the latest version of SAM. So I want to start a SAM project. For that, I will type SAM init, and that will give me some options. Which template I want to use, the AWS Quick Templates, or you can use some custom template location that it's available in GitHub. This is super cool. But for now, we are going to choose the AWS Quick Templates. Then we are going to choose the zip type of artifact. If you want to see how you do container image, check the video I told you about. Then we can pick the runtime. These are all the runtimes that are supported by Lambda right now. If you want to bring your custom runtime, this is SAM init will not help you. You will need to do different way your SAM application. I'll leave you again another video in the description box on how you can bring your own runtime. But we are going to go with Node 12. So I'm picking that one. And then I need to name my project. And this is the hardest thing. SAM first project ever. It's not my first project ever, but well. This will create a directory and it will ask me what kind of template it should bring from the cloud. And I will say I want a web backend. They're all different, so these are quite cool. If you want to get started and see how you can configure SAM in your application and use it, you can check all the different templates. Here it has how to trigger Lambda functions from schedule events, from S3, SNS, SQS, using step functions, and the one we are going to see is the web backend that has API gateways and Dynamo. So now we go into the directory and we open that with Visual Studio Code. So good, we are ready now, and let's see what is inside this project. We can see there are multiple files. The first one, the most important file, is the template YAML. Here is where all your infrastructure is going to get defined. We are coming here in a second. Then we have the package JSON. This is a Node project, so we have a package JSON. And then we have mJSON. Here we are going to define some environmental variables for our local test. I'm not going to do that. So then we have the build spec, and this is basically can be used with code build. So if you want to deploy this from your CI/CD pipeline, this already comes with that script that you will need to run in your code build, but we are not going to get in those details. And then we have a folder called source, and that's where all the code for my Lambda functions are. We will have 3 Lambda functions, and we will go into the details of one and see how that works. And then we have the events folder, and there are 3 events. And those events have are examples of events that we will use in the local testing of our Lambda functions. I will not do local testing, so you will not see that part with me. So let's open the template YAML, and let's go step by step and see what is inside there. The first thing you're going to see is the format version and the description. Then we will see this transform directive, and this transform lets know CloudFormation that this is a SAM template. And then the interesting part is these resources. These resources are all the resources that we want to create in our infrastructure, either SAM or CloudFormation resources. You will see here that we have like 3 Lambda functions, and we have a table, DynamoDB table. These 3 Lambda functions have their own definition and their own permissions and everything. So for each function, you need to tell that this is a function. And then you need to define some properties. The most important properties are the handler, and the handler is where the code is and where the method is for starting this function. So all functions are a function in your code, so we need to tell where that function is. In this case, it's in the source folder, in the handlers, in the get all items module, and in the get all items method. So if we go to the directory, we can see if we follow that path, we will get to that method, and that's the method that will get executed whenever the function is triggered. Then we will have the definition on what is the runtime. We defined that earlier on, but you can change it here. Size is the size of the function, how much it's going to get allocated of memory. One thing with Lambda is that the more memory you have, the faster your CPU is. So sometimes you don't need much memory, but you need a faster function. So you need to make that optimization. The Lambda functions can go up to 10 gigabytes nowadays, so they're quite big. And the timeout is the time that your function will be running. So Lambda functions can run for 15 minutes, but just for a safety constraint, you will define the timeout. There is also a default timeout, but if you define one, it will go up to there. And if your function doesn't finish executing within that time, it will give an error. And that's super important for not keeping your functions running without doing anything or blocking other resources. So this is cool. Then there's a description. And then we have the security policies. And these are the access that these Lambda functions will have and what they can do within your AWS account. And in this case, they can do the CRUD operations on this DynamoDB table. This is done with the SAM policies, and these are really cool. So I will leave you also the link in the description box of these policies that will kind of help you to define very granular security policies for your functions without giving too much permissions. Then we have environmental variables, and these are variables that are going to get passed to your function. We will need the table name that we will be creating soon in our function in order to do operations on it. So that's where we are passing it there. And then finally, we have the API gateway definition. And here we can see that we have an API of type API, all type. And then we will have a path that is nothing and the method get. And then the two other functions are more or less the same, so we will not get into the details. And then we have this sample table, and this is using the SAM definition using the simple table. The simple table is like abstraction on DynamoDB tables. If you want, and I usually do, create a Dynamo table here instead of creating a simple table, but this has less properties that you need to find, so it's pretty nice. And for demo purposes, it works, right? So you define your primary key and then the provisioning throughput. If you want to use the serverless Dynamo table, you need to use a Dynamo CloudFormation resource. I don't think simple table supports the serverless configuration for your Dynamo table. And finally, we have the outputs, and the outputs are, in this case, a link of the API gateway URL. We can have anything in here, but this will be appearing at the end of the deployment. You can also see it in your CloudFormation stacks when you go to outputs. So if you ever forget what is the URL of your API gateway, you will find it there. Then we can go to the code of one of the functions and see how it's done. I will open one in here, the get all items, and you can see the first thing we do is to get that environmental variable that we are getting. We are passing through the infrastructure to the code with the process.m. This is Node, that's something typical from Node. Then we are importing a couple of libraries. This is code, so nothing mysterious there. And then we are basically printing the event and using the DynamoDB client for the AWS SDK to get all the items. This is not very efficient code, so please don't use it in production. This is using scan. And finally, we are creating a response object that will be returned through API gateway. This will have a 200, so it's a successful request with a body of all the items, and then we are just writing something in the console. You can see that we are using console info, console log. By doing that, that will appear automatically in the logs of the function. Now we can build this, and this will create all the interesting kind of things that we need in order to deploy. So you do some build and then you do some deployed. You can see that you have your artifacts now in this .aws SAM build, and some templates are there, so you can go and check them out. In our case, exactly the same. Notice doesn't need to compilation, but well. And now we will deploy, and to deploy to the cloud, we do some deploy that dash guided, and that will take us through a navigation where from kind of helped deployment. We do this only once whenever we deploy to first time. So we will create a new stack name. We'll put there SAM, my first project ever. Put any name. Then you put in which region. I will put Ireland. Then you need to decide if you want to confirm every time you're going to deploy what we are going to deploy. That's pretty nice, but it's very annoying. So I'll put no. Do you want to SAM create a new role? Yes. And then it's asking you that all the functions that are there have not authorization. This is just a security reminder that you need to put some kind of authorization before every function, because for security reasons, anybody can access them. But this is a demo, so I will say no. If you want to know how to create authorization in your functions, I leave you a playlist. Then you can save everything, all these configurations, to a configuration file, and just go through the defaults, and you're ready. This will start deploying, and the next time you deploy, you just do some deploy, and it will use all this configuration and poof, put it in the cloud. This first needs to upload that template to the cloud, and then it will start deploying that stack using CloudFormation. And you will be seeing some information on how the deployment is going. So if something gets stuck, you will see it there. You will see which resources are added, removed, or updated, depending on what you're doing. And you can see the CloudFormation logs here as well. So it will tell you which resources is being created when, and what is the error, if there is any, or what is the status for each of the things. This takes a little while, maybe for this type of application, a couple of minutes. So I will speed this up until we are done, because we don't want to see how CloudFormation creates resources. So when it's done, you will see something like this. You will see that the CloudFormation is deployed, and then you will see an output, and there is the output that we created in the template YAML, and there is the API gateway URL. So basically we can copy that URL and paste it into Postman. Postman is a great service for doing HTTP requests and responses. If you like others, or you can do curl, whatever you like. I just do Postman because it's very visual, but feel free to use the tool that you like the most. We need to put a body, and that body, you can find it if you go to the code and you go to the one that you want to execute. In this case, put item, and you see that the body needs to have an ID and a name. So just read the code, and yeah, and send. That should return a 200 and something back, basically what we just added to the table. And then we can see the logs. For seeing the logs, you have many options. You can do it from the terminal with SAM, or you can do it from the console. I will show you how to do that in a moment. But I like to use this plugin for Visual Studio Code that is called the Serverless console. It's super nice. It's created by someone from the community, and I love it. So you just choose what kind of source, which kind of profile. In this case, I'm using the default, put a name, and whatever name, it doesn't matter, it's just to organize your views. And then you pick in which region you just deploy. In this case, it's Ireland. And it will pop you with the stacks. The one that we just deploy is the top one. And here you can see the free Lambda functions get loaded, and a DynamoDB table. So here you can see the logs for all the functions. So if you click on the functions that we just triggered, you can see the logs for that function. Everything that was done, console log, it's here. And if we will keep on executing this will get updated very fast. And also you can see the items that is inside the Dynamo table. So basically we only have one item. But this is amazing. It makes your life so much easier. Another option is to basically go to the Lambda console and checks the logs from there. Since I have this plugin, I rarely go into the AWS console, and then I open the application, and there you can see a monitoring thing that allows you to see the different invocations for the functions that are inside the application. That's one way to see how your application is doing. Or you can go into each of the individual functions and see the logs for each of the individual functions. So if we go to overview, we go to the function that we want to see, and then we go to monitoring, and then we go to view logs in CloudWatch. We click there, and we will see the log group of this function in CloudWatch, and we can see the logs. So this is okay as well. You do open it once and then you have it open and it keeps on updating, but I really like that plugin. If you want to see the items on your Dynamo table, you go again to the application we just deployed. You go to the resources, and there it will appear the Dynamo table. You open it and you can see the items. If you go to the items tab, you will see that. If you want to see the stack, go to CloudFormation, and there you will see the CloudFormation stack. It's the last one I have. And you can see the different events and the different resources and the outputs, and basically the events are exactly what we just been seeing when it was deployed. SAM was letting us know. The resources are the ones that some of them are listed in the serverless applications that we just saw in the Lambda console. Others are not listed there because it's creating some roles and permissions and things like that we don't need to be aware of. That's how to create your first SAM project. I hope this video helped you to understand what you can do with SAM, how useful it is, and basically every time you watch one of my videos now you know the basics of SAM, because I use it a lot and I like it a lot. If you want to know more about serverless or what should I talk next after this introduction to SAM, let me know. I will be for sure working on some basic patterns using SAM that you ask me, so that will be next in this series. But if there is something in particular you would like to see, let me know. And with that, I see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!